Welcome to Business Coaching Secrets with Karl Bryan. If you want to attract new high-end coaching clients, fill live events, and build a wildly profitable coaching practice where business owners pay, stay, and refer, you've come to the right place. In this podcast, Karl provides his keys to the kingdom for finding and signing high-paying clients and building the coaching business of your dreams. Here we go.
Hey. Hope everybody's doing good. This is Karl Bryan coming at you, filling in for none other than one road dog who can't make it today. But I've got fantastic news. I have called one of our legendary coaches who may or may not look like Jennifer Lopez, by the way, but Rolla Diab is with me. And she's a bit of a rock star coach, very established, done some very, very cool things. And she had a few questions, and I asked her, I said, Rolla, could you do me a favor? Why don't we do this live? And because the podcast, Road Dog couldn't make it, so I said, Rolla, why don't you ask these questions to me live? And then, provided it goes well, and if you're listening to this, apparently it did, then we'll put it as this week's podcast. So there you go. So Rolla Diab, how are you, my love? What's going on?
I am doing amazing, Karl. How are you?
I'm doing good. You're hanging out. I think you might be doing better than me because you're hanging out in South Beach, Miami.
You can't beat it. I just got back from a trip this last night, and there was a rainbow outside this morning on the water, which is stunning. You can't come back from a trip and look at walls when you get to see rainbows and water. It's pretty amazing.
There we go. Very cool. South Beach rainbows. Was there a Lambo driving by in between you and the rainbow?
I'm sure there was.
Is there? Did I hit it? There we go.
There's a lot down here, so I'm sure there was.
Was there a Rolls Royce immediately behind that Lambo?
I mean, Karl, they're all here, so just wait 2 minutes, you'll see one.
I know. I've been there. Very cool. But anywho, so tell me. So do you mind? I'm kind of putting you on the spot here a little bit. What do you think, though? Again, we were having that combo and said, look, let's just record this and see how it goes. So what do you think? Am I putting you on the spot, or are you cool hitting me with some questions?
I like being on the spot.
Perfect. So it's meant to be. Let's go. You got a question for me?
Yeah. So we've got a bunch of new coaches starting, and I wanted to ask your advice. Like, if you were to give one bit of advice that you felt was really important for a new business coach, what would it be?
Okay, that's interesting. Advice. So what would I say? First of all, Overwhelm is quickly about to approach. So again, the tortoise versus the hare, slow, steady, methodical steps each day. I would say that don't get lead generation is something that people get all hung up on, and that's all that they can think about as they're, moving into this. Leads, you just aren't, you have 20 one-to-one clients, you're going to be busy. So, this isn't Facebook advertising, is what I've said recently, I believe on a podcast, but doesn't matter. At the end of the day, you just don't need to, lead generation isn't what it's all about. With your goals, I'm going to encourage you to set yourself a little bit of a target. What most people do is they get into a career, and again, it's a little bit of an experiment, and it's, minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, whether or not they're going to keep going. You've got to go all in. Again, in fact, on a welcome video that I created recently, it was that, you got to go, if there was a secret, which there isn't one, it's to go all in. So you got to go all in. And the way that I do that is just set your sights on something other than you, right? Like, you always do more for others than you'll ever do for yourself, right? So a metaphor, again, I'll always talk about, you got to wake up and you got to get your daughter to gymnastics or your son to baseball. And it's 6 a.m. and it's Saturday morning and you're knackered, you're tired. You manage to wake up, you get into the shower, you rock and roll, and they're there 5 minutes to 6, right? It's your turn to go and hit the gym. What do? You roll over, hit the snooze button. So you want to make it about others. Like, why is it that you're doing this? Like, nobody becomes a business coach, a coach for that matter, by accident. It's normally, a little bit of a calling. And, on this podcast, and as you know, like with our training, what I like to do is I say, I don't want to call people out, but I do want to call on them, for like a greater purpose. So like, if you read my daily email, you'll see like literally at the bottom of every one, I talk about separations. I talk about divorces. I talk about depression. I talk about, the reality is that, suicides happen at a disproportionate rate amongst the, entrepreneurs than it does just the average folk. So that's why you pick up the phone. That's why you reach out. That's why you go to the networking group. That's why you put the pitch. That's why you offer your coaching. Do you know what I mean? Like, you've got a bigger picture. So I would call on somebody to go significantly deeper than the surface, to work out why is it that you've become a business coach. And where we've had a lot of success when I'm helping people develop their story and come up with a way to, like, a really good story will build a high level of rapport really, really quickly. And normally what I'll find is if you go to your 3 most painful experiences as an individual, and sometimes you got to go way back into your childhood, sometimes it's not that far back. Maybe it's a death of a parent, or it's a death in the family. Maybe it's a separation. Maybe it's a divorce. Maybe it was something that happened in school. Maybe it was, you getting picked on and bullied in, school and that sort of stuff. But you go back to your 3 most painful moments, and you will normally find that in and amongst that experience is how you end up getting so drawn to becoming a business coach. Maybe complementary to that. Like, when I used to get people started as a business coach, this is way back in 2005, I used to give them this 40-page report. And it was really good. And it was about, imagine risk reversal, loss leaders, creating a market dominating position, a unique selling proposition, the basics of proper upfront offer, the basics that I would encourage anybody to build, strong foundation for their business for. And what I said is that, look, I'd give it to them and I'd say, this is either going to put you to sleep or it's going to keep you awake. Okay. It's going to be one or the other. If it puts you to sleep, look, business coaching probably isn't for you. But if it keeps you awake and you can't not see the opportunities, and you can't think to yourself, my gosh, if I do this for, again, the chiropractor, the dentist, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, if I get together with them and I help them put any of this stuff in place, which, again, really easy to do because they gave me the ABCs and the 1, 2, 3s in the report, we're going to absolutely kill it. Then this is probably, the right industry for you. And we should really look at, a bit of a test drive, get you started and see if you like it. And invariably, Rolla, what would happen is I would give somebody that report. This would have definitely happened with you. I'd give them the report, and then, like, we'll get back together, say 3 days later, and they say, oh, I am so mad at you. Right? And I'm like, what? What happened? And they say something to the effect of, I haven't been able to sleep all week. All I can think about is that report, helping the business owners, what we talked about, getting started, how long it's going to take me. So, you know what I mean? Like, they really lay it on. So basically that's, I don't know if that's, normally I'd like to give you more of an ABC 1, 2, 3, but these are the things that I'd be thinking about, a new coach. Certainly the rule is don't experiment, right? It's just experiments normally don't end well. You got to go all in. And I think that, you've probably seen a little bit of that. You've been in coaching a long time. So that's what I would say. That's what I would say. What do you think? You like?
I think you're spot on. I remember when I started with you guys, and I absolutely went all in. I made sure I was on as many calls just to hear what people were saying, because it's one thing to go through the training and it's a whole nother to get into conversations about it. That's when you're diving deep and you're hearing it in different ways. Once you hear things in different ways and from different angles, it's like a whole nother level of saturation that affects you, and it really ingrains it to a whole nother level. So yeah, that I'm 100% on board with that thinking. And it's, I think, a big reason why I did well quickly, right? Because if I didn't do that, I think it would have taken me a lot longer.
Yeah. You're definitely all in, Rolla. Your personality is, you are all in, girl, for sure. But that's what it takes, right? But it's not being all in. I mean, you're like, this is, I mean, I think this is your soul. Like I said, you feel called is what I think.
Yeah.
That's the magic. And some people are, and some people aren't. And, and again, you and I have had conversations about this where there's easier ways to make a living, right? You know that. I know that. My goodness, it's just easier ways to make a living. But I don't know that there is more rewarding ways. I don't know there's more, exciting. You know what I mean? Like, it's just so much fun for the right individual. And the magic, you never need to retire. Because Warren Buffett, he's 90 years old. Like people think of Warren Buffett as the stock guy. The truth is he is a consultant, right? He provides time and money for businesses that he can influence positively, and he can't influence you positively. He won't give you his time or his money. He's 90 and he's still going strong, right? And all of us can do that. We can keep going. We can slow down a little if we so choose, but this isn't like, a realtor when the knee, the ankle, the hip goes and you can't get up and down the stairs. You're not going to be selling a lot of real estate. I got bad news for you, right? At some stage, you're selling pharmaceuticals and you roll up and you got a little, the hair's too gray or you got too little of it. Or you're kind of walking with, you know what I mean? Like not walking, like it's time for you. This is why people retire at 65, right? In the corporate world, it's just time for you to move on and bring somebody younger with more energy in is generally the way. There's no need for that here. So yeah, there you go. What do you think?
Love it. I love it. So what would you say for more established coaches, like the coaches and consultants that come on board that are, they've had some history and you want to give them advice? What would you say would be your best advice to more established coaches?
Best advice. Look, it's all about, I would say this, you've got to work towards being the best business coach you can be. And that sounds like it's out of a textbook and platitudinal and just, hairy-fairy, but truly, that's what you got to do. You like an example, like I taught myself, I'm going to say it's 5 years ago now. I just delved deep into accounting. And I have never been the finance guy, the math guy, the account guy by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, I think I understood profit margins maybe at a higher level than the average bear, but I was most definitely not an accountant. But why did I do that? I knew that there was a next level for me, but really it wasn't that there was a next level for me. There was a next level for me to be able to provide value to our community of coaches. And I knew that I believe that, again, I'm the all in guy, right? If I'm going to go all in, I just know that I'm going to be able to take something very complex and I'm going to be able to dummy it down at a level that others are going to be able to follow, because that's just the way my mind works. And that's just what I, you know what I mean? I wouldn't do it for any other reason, right? That's what we do. So that would be an example of that, right? But, you got to become, it's like, we have a lot of digital marketers as clients. First thing I say to them is, gosh, Facebook advertising is like 2% of helping somebody. They need to have a proper upfront offer. They've got, the average business, if you provide them 100 leads in one day, the whole ship would fall over, right? It would sink. They're not ready for it. You've got to have a lead gen mechanism. You've got to have a conversion mechanism. And then most importantly, you've got to have a fulfillment mechanism, right? And I think that's what I'm saying here, Rolla, is that they've got to, like, again, the leads and the conversion. If they're an experienced coach, they've been going for a long time, they probably get the whole lead gen meets conversion, but it's the fulfillment thing and it's the retention of clients and the lack of attrition that's really going to get them to new heights. So I challenge them and I say, look, tell me what you know about accounting. Like, it's not like, I co-wrote a book, Accounting 101 for Business Coaches. I mean, like, I delved into it. We ran training, right? Which you did, 4 days of how to read financial statements. Like, and I'll tell you, there was lots of accountants on, and anybody who, gets a hold of the recordings is going to see accountants raising their hand consistently and going, holy smokes. Like, where literally one almost perfect wording was, I've been an accountant for 35 years and I only wish I would have seen this when I first got started. Right. So that's, what I mean? Like, the digital marketer, I would encourage them to go and become, to understand profit margins, understand proper upfront offers and the importance of, and how to structure it, how to create a market dominating position, a unique selling proposition, something that's going to separate them. in the words of, I believe it's Peter Thiel, like you should never have competition, right? You don't want to work to be the best. You want to work to be the only, right? Which, but anyway, so that's what I would say. Go all in on the fulfillment and becoming like the best restaurant in town is not short of a customer, right? The same way that the best hotel is the same. You become the best business coach in the entire city, in the entire state, and aspire to be the best in the entire country, including Tony Robbins. Become better than Tony Robbins. And you think Tony Robbins is short of a client? Why? Because he's the best. Right? And he's also the best at marketing himself, by the way, and he's not shy on doing so. So that's what I'd say is, really, you're an established coach. Go all in on the fulfillment, and you're going to find your retention's going to go through the roof. Your attrition's going to fall off a cliff in a good way, and you're going to crush it. So that's what I would say, my love. There you go.
To that note, for someone like myself, I came in and numbers have never been my strong suit. I suck at math. And so for me to go through that financial training and now I can put together a P&L, I like that blows my mind. And the level of confidence that created for me you couldn't replace that for anything, right? I mean, that was everything for me because confidence is such a big factor, right? And for me, going through that financial training was game changer because I understood things on a whole nother level. And when I first heard it, I was like, okay, wait, I'm not totally getting this. And then going through it, I was like, okay, now I got it. And it's like just formulas. And you guys really made it so that it was comprehensible. And so anyway, I love that. And I'm completely an advocate of what you're saying because it worked for me.
Okay. Well, okay, Rollo, so let me to tell you. So here's what we found, right? So we put out, because this is an internal thing, right? You have to, you know what I mean? So everybody listening, like you had to be a client. You can't go and this is not available to the public, right? There's a lot of programs that we run, we create, and we only make them available to folks with us. And we put that out there. And I'll tell you that as an example, if I put out a program, how to use Facebook ads, how to complete Facebook ads, we would have had we had a lot of people enrolled in that, by the way, but we would have had twice as many people in the Facebook ad training as we did in how to read financial statements. And I will tell you, though, that what we found, and I knew that this would happen, but the caliber of coach that brought in was significant. Like it was high. Like I said, there are a lot of, we have a lot of accountants that work with us. A lot of the accountants were signing up for that training. And so what I'm trying to say is that I want to challenge speaking to the experienced coaches specifically, what is it that you're attracted to? You know what I mean? And training on how to read financial statements. Is that that's not the kind of stuff that would keep you awake at night. Again, that's the stuff that would put you to sleep. But Rolla, to your point, it's literally when you understand what that training laid out, how you can read financial statements and you can literally, find your fees literally sitting on a document. Let's just say somebody's $2,000 a month, 24 grand a year. They're $4,000 a month, 48 grand a year, and they can sit down with a financial statement and literally point at their fees. Go right, that's where I'm making my fees in the first 90 days for the entire year, if not the first 30 days. By the way, it's game changing. But you get what I mean? It's not as sexy as Facebook ads, and therefore it was passed over by a lot of coaches that should have been diving into it. But you're that higher level, you're operating at a significantly higher level, and then you went, this is an opportunity for me to go higher, right? And that's what we want to see. And that's what I was trying to say a minute ago. If the coaches become the absolute best you can be, and if you see training on accounting and you bypass it because you're not a math person or it's just not exciting to you, that's a swing and a miss in my opinion. So
absolutely, 100%. Yeah, for sure. So what would you say is, from what you've seen, the best way to generate leads? And even once you do generate those leads, as far as managing your current book of clients and continuing to generate new business, the balance between those two.
Balance. Okay. Yeah. So, I might answer that in two parts. Okay. So one, best way to generate leads. And then the second part was, how do I balance generating leads with actually looking after the clients that I have so that I don't.
Right. So the prospecting and then fulfillment, essentially.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Nice. Okay. Great question. Okay. Let me answer the part one. Lead gen. Again, I said it a little bit earlier. Just don't feel like you need to go and generate a whole slew of leads. You just don't. Like, you get 20 clients and you're going to be flat out. In fact, if you're new, when you get 10 clients, you're going to be super busy because you don't know exactly what you're supposed to be doing, and you should be spending, a good amount of time, helping your clients and going above and beyond, etc. Well, I don't know, if your conversions are, 50%, you need a whopping 20 leads, so anyways, and there might be, you know what I mean? Like, you just don't need to, generate a ton. So what you need to do is you need to find an accountant willing to take you for a test drive and send 3 clients your way and see what you can do. You need to find a networking organization, right? Where, see, the accountant, the deliverable that accountant should be providing is building the best business that they can, right? Well, that's not what they do. What they do is they provide you tax returns and keep you compliant so that you don't get in trouble with the law, right? That's crazy. They should be helping you build a complete business. The networking organization, what do? They provide you referrals, and the group provide referrals to one another. Well, my question is, what happens when somebody calls, right? Like, do they have an offer? Do they have a pitch? Do they have something interesting to say? Do they have something that separates them from the competition? Are they talking about being, the fastest or the best? Are they talking about being the only? And have they ever been given that advice and ever thought about, working to be the best is absolutely critical. And I believe world class should be the standard for everybody. That sounds platitudinal, but I don't think a lot of people are working. They're not waking up in the morning and speak, how can I match Michael Phelps's efforts in the pool in my business, right? Like, absolutely being the best, but being the absolute only, right? So are they thinking along those lines? And the answer is no. So the networking organization should actually be providing your services as to help, build proper businesses and proper models. So again, I would say to the networking group, don't send me everybody you ever met. Take me for a test drive. Like, when you go buy a car, what do? You take it for a test drive. So people are very comfortable with that terminology and they get it, and just say, look, Dave, the networking guy, or Susie, the gal that owns the networking group, send me 3 people. Let's see if I'm as good as I say I am. In 90 days, we're both going to know, right? And your 3 clients are going to be the benefactor, and let's go kill it. Somebody sells advertising, the magazine, the newspaper, the billboard, the radio station, the digital marketer, same thing. Get them to send you 3 clients. So if you got 3 people to send you 3 clients, that would be 9, and you'd be well on your way. Double those efforts, you're at 18, and you're real busy gal, real busy guy with your business coaching. So best way to generate leads, joint ventures. But with 100% certainty, what I would do if I started, but do understand that the little red arrow, you are here. Like, I like to speak in public. I like to be at the front of the room. I like to try not just educate, but entertain that room. And I've done it lots and lots and lots of times, but I had to start, just like a lot of the folks listening here. But I would do, we have a program called Live Event Mastery. With 100% certainty, what I would do is I would run local live events with 5 to 10 people in a room. I would put food, like, breakfast in front of them. I would do a bang up presentation and provide them, more value than they could have ever dreamt that they would have got, to the point where they wouldn't need to pay me. They could literally just leave and do what I just told them to do, and they'd have a killer business. But again, they wouldn't do that, right? We would just literally, we would wow them so much they'd be like, gosh, if he does this generically and with, this room of 10 people for generic businesses and not really drilling down on mine, gosh, if I got together with this guy 1-to-1, geez, could you imagine the value and the ideas and the roadmap that I would walk away with? Yeah, absolutely. I'll pay him to do that. So that's what I would do, is I would, put on an event. I would speak in public. There's a little bit of magic there, Rola, which this, but I'm speaking to everybody listening, where when I am speaking and there's a room of 10 people, and then I say, you should write this down, and then 10 pens start scratching on the workbook. There's a lot of power in that, right? So what happens is it starts the coaching relationship in a good way, where I say jump and they say how high, they don't ask why, if you know what I mean, right? So one of the rules that I had back in the day was I was coaching was that you had to see me speak in public or I wouldn't take you on as a client. I mean, that's when I was well and truly established, but that was one of the rules that I had. It was for that reason, because I wanted good, compliant clients. And I found the ones that, saw me speak in public, in a powerful way and the way I just described, they were better clients and they lasted longer, higher retention. And then again, compliance being critical, because when I tell them what to do, and not everything works. But the other thing, Rolla, what I found that I got more forgiveness, right? Because when I'm not magic, and their business isn't magic. I mean, business is a complicated thing, right? Well, if we did undertake a program or a marketing initiative or whatever, and it didn't work well, because I had that credibility, there was a lot more, leniency that, oh, okay, well, look, and it was okay that I said, look, that didn't necessarily work, right? Try to make everything work, of course, but that I'm not magic and I didn't pretend to be. So anyways, so generating leads, that's what I would do. And then what I would do, and again, I created a video where I talked about this, many years ago now, but where like what I would do is there would always be, I had unbelievable conversion for putting people in these rooms. Like again, most coaches are struggling to do, one presentation a month. I was doing three a day, on Tuesdays, morning, afternoon, and then evening. And, we were killing it. But what hang on, I was going somewhere with that. What was Rollo, what was I going to say? It was something about generating leads, the rooms. Oh my gosh, I lost my train. You know what? Bottom line is that's, the reason. There had to be a reason. My conversions were really high to get you into the room because I had a reason. Actually, I had a conversation literally about that this morning, where we need a reason. Okay, so let's say, Rolla, you're a florist. Okay, and there's an award in, there's a award in Miami given to the number one florist, and then there's 10 businesses are nominated, and then they have the final three, and then they have the winner, right? Well, if you're in the top 10, the reason you're invited is because you were in the top 10. If you're in the top three, the reason you were invited is because you were number one, number three or number two. If you won, the reason you were invited is because you won. If you were in a chamber, a member of the same chamber that I was, because you're a member of the chamber, that's the reason you're invited. If you're in the same BNI or networking group or whatever, that's the reason. There was always a reason, because your LinkedIn profile, because you're a husband-wife team in business, that's the reason. Because you're a florist, that's the reason. You get it? Like when we were calling you, there was always a reason. And then believe me, but this is 10 times as much work with your lead gen and your conversion to get them to the event. But I got to tell you that your results are going to be ridiculously higher as a result. So I could, you have a reason frame, all about that. So that was the other thing. But that's what I would be doing right there. And I do live events like crazy, one a week with 5 to 10 people, and I'd be a very, very busy coach very, very quickly with 100% certainty. What do you think? Beautiful. You like that? You agree?
I like that. And it's certainly worked. I mean, I didn't do quite as many, but I did them, and it definitely worked for me. So everything you're saying, I've done. So we're on the same page.
There we go. Nice.
And so how do you balance?
Oh, yeah. Well, look, I'd go straight to your calendar. I believe that there's magic. In fact, I've been asked different times, like the number one tool that, I have in my coaching business, quote unquote. And I've often said Google Calendar, or if like your calendar, the way that you structure it with different colors, different times, different activities, very, very powerful. So what I would do is think, you didn't take 30, depending upon where you're at, do you have 15 clients or do you have 5? Okay. So the difference, that's the little red arrow, you are here, so that your calendar would look different with those two different dynamics. But let's assume you're just getting going. You've only got a few clients. 30% of your calendar would be booked off in a different color. And that's where you're doing client work and where you're putting client appointments. And then the other, what I say, 30%, and then the other 70% is going to be, phoning joint ventures, speaking to joint ventures, meeting with joint ventures, generating leads, doing research like I just described, right? To put 10 people in that, the room at the Chamber of Commerce. Next Tuesday. So I'd be spending. So that's what I do. I would calendarize everything, including, like you should have a TTT, time to think, should also be on your calendar. Talked about this many times in the past, but like, how much time is anybody taking to sit back? Like, we talk about meditation, which is mission critical for most business owners that want to accomplish a lot, because it's a step. It's a step back to take multiple forward. But like the same thing, just ask yourself one question. Go into a quiet room, no phone, no bathroom breaks, no getting up, no stretching, no anything. Just sit in a chair with a pen, a piece of paper, ask yourself a question, write it across the top, and just put it down. Well, that should be on your calendar, right? And then time to measure, by the way. What are you measuring? If you don't measure it, you can't manage it. We all know that saying, but are we living it? And that's where you're like, okay, I got a hold of 16 business owners and I've got 3 coming to my event. Well, look, what are you going to, if you need to get 9 people, you've got to find another 32 to get a hold of if the same percentages hold true. Right.
Right.
So anyway, so calendarize it is what you got to do. Whereas I would dare say 80, probably 95% of the business owners, the business coaches, if I look at their calendar, we'd be very disappointed with the number of activities that they're calendarizing. They're just kind of going up the seat of their pants and then wondering why they feel a little bit disorganized, if you know what I mean.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. Beautiful.
What do you think? Does that help? Does that answer? What
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. For sure. Okay. And then do we have time for another question or two?
Yeah, go for it. Yeah, whatever you want.
So how about for high-end, high-ticket clients? What would your advice be around getting those?
Well, my advice is that you accept the statistics. Again, there's universal principles, right? That you, nor I, or Tony Robbins, or anybody are getting away from. And that is that, not like, I talk 80-20 all the time and the power of it. And if you go 80-20 and then you go to the 20 and you go 80-20 and then you go to the 20 and go 80-20, you do that 4 times, you get 150, right? So 1% of your activity derives 50% of your productivity, your efficiency, etc. That sounds good. The problem is taking a magnifying glass over the 20 and getting to that 1%, which is a lot harder than what it seems. But that is, and then somebody's there going, my gosh, really? Like, is that 150? Look, it's a universal principle, right? 1% of the, 1% of the people in the world own, 50% of the shoes. Like, that's just the way it is. That's the stats, right? Okay, so that's a universal principle. So 96% of business owners do not make it to 7 figures. Okay, and that's not gross. That's not net. That's gross, right? Like, as in, that's like top line revenue. That's not how much money they make. That's how much money lands in the bank account. So therefore, if you put 100 people in the room, you'd have 1 that is over. You'd have 4 that are over 7 figures. You know what I mean? Like, got to accept those numbers. So high ticket clients, you have got to build yourself a really, really strong base. And you got to be accepting the fact, like, if you fill a low, we hear it all the time, right? And you've seen it, you've lived it, you've got coaches underneath you and they've experienced it, where they're they're filling these rooms, and what do they say? Nobody's got any money, right? And it's like, it's if you put 10 people in the room, 1's going to have any darn money. And of course, that's a slight, you know what I mean? That 96% don't get it to 7 figures. You don't need to get the 7 figures to have yourself a ridiculously profitable business. So the advice to going high ticket is you got to have somebody worthy of a high ticket item in front of you, and you need to be accepting of the fact that a lot of folks won't. That being said, I don't know that's the answer you're looking for, because ultimately what we've got to do is we need to build a value proposition. Like, Like you and I have the good fortune of being in a business where we're able to sell money at a discount. Okay. What I mean by that is if I have a $20 bill, right, and then you have a 10, and I say, Rolla, would you like to trade? You'd ask three questions, right? One, is he full of it? Two, is this for real? And you'd look for some social proof. And then three, you'd say, will you do that deal, please? And then you'd say, will you do it again? 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 Because who wouldn't exchange a 20 for a 10, right? Are you crazy? So what we've got to be able to do, if you're going to do a high ticket, high value offer, I believe that the easiest way to get it closed in our world, right? It'd be different if we were talking about fashion or selling fashion, right? It would be basically that I want to put together an offer that looks like, there's $25,000 of hard expense, like hard, value there that I'm willing to sell to you for 10. And then if it's, a $50,000 unit, I want to show you $100,000 of hard value. And the way that you present that, like, again, it needs to be line by line. Like, Rolla, if you sign up today, here's what you get. Boom. If you sign up for this, here's what you get. Boom. And if anybody wanted to see me do that presentation, if you go to my YouTube channel and you watch a presentation that I did where it was a bunch of internet, it was for a bunch of digital marketers, but I basically did a presentation where, how I made $789,000 or something like that in 12 months as a consultant. And you can literally see me go line by line by line with bonuses, all with a value attributed, attached to them to say that, look, if you sign up for XYZ, this is what you're going to get. So anyway, so that, you know what I mean? Like I would just build a value proposition where they almost think, are you crazy? That's what I would say. And not everybody is going to be built for it. So to get to those high value, high end, like Tony Robbins, he puts 1,000 people in the room and there's only 100 maybe that can afford his $100,000 program, right? And he's just accepting of that. You go to a Tony Robbins event and there's 5,000 people. There's a few thousand in there that had to borrow the money to get there, right? And it's just the way it is.
Right.
He's magic. So I don't know. What do you think? That help? Does that make sense?
It makes sense. Yeah. You're essentially saying to focus on the ones that, the low hanging fruit, essentially.
That is it. But you got to know that you're going to have to, there's 9 that are not low hanging fruit and you're going to attract them. So if you do a local live event at the chamber, and you put 10 people in the room, you're looking at a number of people that want to afford you, but just can't,
Right.
And that's not, there's third party financing and there's all sorts of creative ways and there's borrowing money from, family members. So it's not to say that you don't, but it's just, there's some universal principles here that a lot of folks, they just, their appetite to spend is significantly, greater than their appetite to save. So that's just not going to change. Right.
Right. Yeah. Okay. And so, Karl, what would you say is the best way to ensure that you keep clients for a long time?
And by the way, now this is the awesome question. What I'm trying to say. Look, it's just so, you know what I mean? Like if you have a coaching business, like here's another question. Look, if every client you had sent you 2 referrals, you triple your business immediately. Right. And by the way, that would, for most coaches that are doing well, you literally can't keep up at that point. Like you can't even afford to triple your business because you'd run out of bandwidth. Right. So yeah, talked about it a little bit earlier, something like what's the level of training? Like if it was somebody on the phone, right? Like I'd go like I know you, like you literally just did our training on how to read financial statements. Well, that the reason you put your hand up to do that training is that you were like, well, this is the kind of thing that's going to allow me to take my coaching, my career, and my talents and my skills to entirely new heights, right? And you self-described as somebody who sucks at math, right? And then boom, you did the training and you're like, my gosh, it's actually about 1,000,000 times easier than I ever thought, right?
Right.
Like, it's more like, think of it as addition versus multiplication for anybody listening. It's just not that complicated. But you know what I mean? Like, so what's the level of training? That's, to the individual listening. Like if you want to take do you deserve the client? Can you take, like I say, if you show me a $25 million company, I'll show you an HR company. Do you know what I mean? Like they're no longer about lead gen. They're about hiring good people. Well, coach, question, you took your client from 10 million to 25 million. How much do you know about HR? So do you deserve to keep that client? And have you gone and found somebody that's masterful at HR that could really help these guys in areas that you're not proficient? You know what I mean? Like, do you deserve to keep your client past a certain point? You start with Facebook ads, and what happens is you end up with a fulfillment issue big time, and you often end up with an accounts receivable problem because again they weren't ready for it, and now all of a sudden they've got this like Rolla, you and I have talked privately about this, right? Where like you've got a business that's doing X, let's call it 500 grand a year, small business, again, the local bakery, the butcher, the baker, the candlestick maker, they're trucking along at 500 grand and they make X, right? And then you help them, you turn on the Facebook ads, you turn on the lead gen, you hire them a sales team, you get this sales guy or gal that's just unbelievable. And you're, again, a sales trainer, so you've done this very successfully. And like they go to $1 million. Right? They go from 500,000 to $1 million. And what happens very often is that they make less money at $1 million than they were making at 500,000. But they're like, the revenues are up. We're now at $83,333 a month, which is, double where we were at. But where in the world is all the money? And then they think accounts receivable is some magic pill that all of a sudden, like their bills get paid, which is not necessarily the case unless you have a system to go and collect it. So now all of a sudden they've got this thing called bad debt that they need to deal with and manage. Because like at $1 million, and again, we talked about this recently with Road Dog on the podcast, but what happens is at 500,000 and then you grow to $1 million, you're significantly more vulnerable at $1 million than you were at 500,000, right? Like what I mean, you got more clients, you got more staff, you got more, again, accounts receivable, you got your accounts payable is higher. You've got, you've got all these newfound issues. So you become more vulnerable at $1 million. So my question is, coach, right, that is retaining the client, are you the person that is going to help them go from 500,000 to $1 million with one eye on margins to make sure that they're maintaining their margin, maintaining their accounts receivable to make sure that that money's hitting their bank account? Or are you just the gross revenue, gal or guy that ends up with a vulnerable client wondering what the heck happened? You know what I mean? So it kind of comes back to the answer I gave earlier. You've really got to concentrate on being the absolute best business coach you can be. And the way you do that is you go get the skills, you train yourself, you build up the skills. And as you know, we built software around all of this and group coaching software around all of this that our coaches get trained on at a ridiculously high level. But like that's what you got to do. You want to retain client. Again, it's kind of a different, like you get the question, right, Rolla, is that do you deserve to keep your clients is what I like to ask, right? And throws it back and they go, oh, dear me. And then that individual is the person that will respond to all of a sudden the training on reading financial statements as opposed to falling for the sexy and delusional, Facebook ad, Instagram, now it's TikTok and everything else, which is a lot of lead gen. I don't know. What do you think? How am I doing? You agree with that? You like that?
No, 100%. Yeah, because the differentiator being that, are you showing up as someone that can really help, right? Because you know what you're talking about, you know what you're doing, and you can make that impact. So yeah, absolutely. I mean, every week that I speak to any of my clients and I know that I'm making a positive difference and they feel it, they see it, right? They know they're growing and moving in the right direction. I make myself sticky, right? That's just what I want.
That's it. Boom. Retention. That's just retention again. And you just been around long enough that but I would imagine early on in your career, you made the mistake. Like I certainly did, right? You made the mistakes that I described. We were like, really about growth and really, just, lead gen and whatnot and sales. And it's like, let's go, Tiger, let's do it. And then that happens. And then all of a sudden it's, whoa, we got a set of problems here like HR, set of problems like bookkeeping issues and accounts receivable problems and, accounts payable blowing up that, an inventory. You watch the show The Prophet, right? Marcus Lemonis, which I love that show, by the way. And like, how often does he go in and inventory? You know what I mean? Like, and he's like, we got to just get rid of this dead inventory. It's not going anywhere. It hasn't been managed. It hasn't been tracked. It's up. You need a ladder to go get the stuff, and nobody's, it's been there for 3 years. It's just pull it down, get rid of it, sell it at a loss, put the cash in the bank, and let's start again and make sure that we track inventory properly in the future. Like, that's not what that, that's just a very prototypical business that grew quickly without a proper system in place. It's a bad idea. So there you go. What do you think? Does that help? What do you think? You like?
Of course. I mean, that's why I'm here. Learn from the best.
Legend. Oh, thank you, Rolla. High five. And you're not so bad yourself, by the way. You are doing some amazing things. So I high five you, Rolla. And I appreciate. What do you think? Are we this good? What do you think? How we doing?
I think we nailed a lot of it. I mean, people always have questions, but I think we touched upon some of the more important aspects of the business that people need to really honestly pay attention to, because if they pay attention to everything that we touched upon, or you touched upon, I think they'll grow and they'll do well. And that's what everybody wants, right? To be able to create a business that they're successful at.
So high five. There we go. Coming at you folks from South Beach, Miami. Boom. There we go. And Rolla, I super appreciate you rowing up and agreeing to do this and do the Q&A and asking me some questions. Very, very cool. So, Road Dog, I'm nervous about him, Rolla. You did pretty darn good. You might be losing. Be careful. You might be happy with that, Rolla. I got to take that back. Take that back. Now, it's awesome. Rolla, appreciate you, bud. You're awesome.
Of course. My pleasure. Anytime.
Oh, you beauty. Thank you so much.
Karl Bryan built Profit Acceleration Software 2.0 to train business coaches how to find any small business owner more than $100,000 in 45 minutes without them spending an extra dollar on marketing or advertising. This becomes a business coach's superpower. So as a business coach, you'll never again have to worry about working with business owners that can't afford your high-end coaching fees. Check us out at Focused.com.